Hey, what's up guys? Nick Quintero here, and today I'm going to show you how to use the Shape Builder tool in Illustrator and why I used it for this specific project that I had. All right, let's go. All right, so I had this task that I had to do. I had to remake this artwork that was designed by somebody else. It may have just been a font. I'm not 100% sure, but I needed to remake it as quick as possible. And I had this exact layout that I needed to use. And for me, the Shape Builder felt like the most reasonable tool to use rather than just coming through with the pen tool. Now, the reason why I wanted to use the Shape Builder was specifically because of these serifs on these letters here. So they all have like these little, triangle serifs on this futuristic text or whatever it is. And honestly, it probably is just a font, but I felt like this would be a lot faster for me to just remake it rather than spend a long time trying to find the font, because there are so many different font resources. Like there's absolutely no telling where it came from. And this isn't a traditional style font, it's more of a display font. So those are harder to find using things like What the Font or Font Squirrel or whatever those other apps are that are supposed to identify fonts. The Shape Builder is really, really useful, especially whenever you have, things that are built out of solid and basic shapes. So there's a lot of triangles and, rectangles and things in this particular artwork. So I figured it would be super easy to just start with those shapes. So I'm actually going to redo what I did the first time just to give you an idea of the whole process from start to finish. So I locked my layer that has my, screenshot in here, and then I'm going to drag down some guides from these rulers here, just so I can get my top and bottom. I'm also going to select those and lock them as well. Now I'm going to start with these serifs here, and I'm actually just going to draw a square. I'm going to rotate it using the R shortcut and just kind of drag it over here and get a general idea of the placement of this. I'm also going to press Command U to turn on my smart guides so that these points will lock to these guides that I've drawn. All right, so I started with the letter E just because it feels like the most simple shape here. And I'm going to draw a rectangle around the letter E. I'm going to draw another rectangle for this line. I'm going to copy this tilted square up here for this serif. And actually, you see how this box is not extending past those serifs? I'm going to pull it out a little bit further. And then I'm going to draw another shape here for that top line. Another one here for that bottom one. Now, you kind of have to get into the groove of how you're drawing these things. I like to make sure that my shapes are completely extended past each other so that there's not a lot of intersections. Like I could easily draw this where it intersected with this other square, but I find it easier to just go way past it. So that way you're not getting tiny little slivers of shapes and things, tangents, if you will. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a box here for this guy, and since it comes here at this angle, I'm going to draw another square. I'm going to rotate it while holding shift so that it locks into a perfect 90-degree turn, and I'm going to put this right here so that it intersects that line right there. There are more serifs here, so this one I do have to kind of line up perfectly, but I'm going to show you what it looks like. I'm going to press Command Y to go into the outline view. And you can see that these points here intersect, and it intersects here in the center as well. So some parts you have to make sure that you line up perfectly like that, but for the most part, extending these boxes and things is what you want to do. Now, I know this can look kind of intimidating and crazy, and it may not make sense until you start going through the process of using the shape builder. So what you want to do is select all of those shapes that you just drew, and then on your keyboard, press Shift M, and it will change your tool to the shape builder. Now, you know that you've gone into it whenever you start seeing how these change when you hover over them. Okay, let me see if I can explain this very well. So once your shape builder tool is selected and your hover changes the way that these look, you have two options. If you click and drag across two shapes, it'll join them together and it'll merge into one shape. Let me show you exactly what I mean. So we know that these two parts right here are both filled in white in the background. So if I click on this one and drag to the left, you'll see that they'll both highlight. And then when you let go, it'll merge the two shapes. Now, the opposite of this is if you hold Option, or I believe it'll be Alt on a PC, and click on a section and drag, it will delete that section. And you can delete multiple sections at a time by doing the same thing, which is holding Option or Alt, clicking on one shape, dragging over to another, and when you let go, they both disappear. So now basically what I want to do is use the merge function for all of the pieces that need to be filled in white, and use the subtract function for all of the pieces that are filled in blue with the background so that they'll go away. So let's hold Option first and get rid of these two pieces, this one down here and this one, so that they are just completely gone. Now you can see there's a little piece peeking up right here. So I'm going to hold Option and drag over that one. I'm going to hold Option and drag over all of these blue pieces here. And just keep going all the way around the bottom. And then get rid of these over here on the side. And what you, oh, look, there's two more little stragglers here. You got to make sure that you get all of these pieces. And now everything else that's left is all the solid shape that needs to be white. So somebody on my TikTok actually showed me a little trick, is that if you hold Shift while you select these things, it'll actually select in a box shape. So you can select all of these things at once without making squiggly lines. So here, I'm just making sure everything is all selected and merged together. And now I'm able to get that shape perfectly done. Now, I know that you could do this very, very easily with the pen tool and just trace over the shape of this E and be done with it, and it'll be quick and easy. But the reason why I did not use the pen tool on this project is because of these serifs. So I'm going to go ahead and undo everything that I've just done to show the process of how this works. And I'm just going to have my base shapes that I created originally. Now, the reason I want to do this is because once all of this is created, I want to use this square that I've turned into like the serif triangle and copy it across all of these letters to make sure that I have a very consistent size, shape, and placement of these serifs on all of these letters, especially whenever you start moving up here to the top. And now these points that I aligned on the bottom here, I guess I did it up here as well. They align to my guides to make sure that I'm putting these serifs in the same exact place and that they are the same size and consistent across all of the letters that use them. So I'm just holding Option and holding Shift so that these things will slide in a uniform fashion, and creating these sections where these serifs are. And now I am not 100% sure that I did this the first time, but I can also drag this rectangle shape that I use for this left side of the E to make sure that all of the widths are consistent in these letters as well. So if I just go ahead and drag them over here, you can see they're actually not really consistent in the original, So I am probably going to go ahead and like shrink these down a little bit. And in this case, actually make it a little bit wider, but making sure that they align with the points of these serifs here. But the fact that you can just drag and drop these pieces across all your letters, it helps you stay a lot more consistent in the design in this specific example. You know, you may have to do this a little bit different whenever you're doing something that isn't exactly all relative like this one is. But for me, this is the reason that I chose to do it this way. All right, there's actually one more up here. So I'll copy that. This is fine. There's another piece here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then there are these serifs here on this S. Eyeball those, and there's one on this side of the L. All right, so that is my explanation of why I chose to use the shape builder for this, because to me, it just makes a lot more sense to create all of these shapes the way that they need to be created. So now that this is all together, I am going to go back to my E. And it's a little bit more difficult to see this time, but I'm going to redo what I did in the first example. Oh, look, I messed one up here. It's fine. Just replace it like that. Make sure I have everything selected. Erase all of those outside pieces and these little guys that can be missed easy. And pull it all together. All right, so now my E is done. I'm going to press Shift X so that my fill is showing, so that it's a lot easier to see when I get to these other parts and pieces. All right, the next thing I'm going to do here is this A. So I'm going to draw in the flat bottom parts here. And then I'm going to, actually, let's go ahead and just shape builder. I don't know if that's the proper term, but I'm going to go ahead and delete those. And then I'm going to draw a big square, hold Shift, and you can see it actually lined up pretty damn close to what I wanted. And now I have that line. I'm going to copy that over to this line, and then I'm going to draw a big line for this part of the A right there. So I'm going to select all of this, press Shift M to get back to my shape builder, hold Option and delete all of these pieces that are on the outside one by one. Hold Shift, draw my square across all of these pieces, and now I've got another letter traced out perfectly. So swap those colors so you can see it and move on to the next one. Now I think this Y might be a good place to go from here. So I'm going to draw my bottom line. And I'm going to draw my top line. Actually, let's try to keep these lines going downward. Okay, so now I'm going to draw another big square, rotate it, holding Shift, and place it over these lines. And this one's kind of cool because you can just put it right in the middle and it'll take care of both of those lines. And then copy and drag that one straight up. And now it's covering both of those lines. Select all of these things here. Press Shift M, hold Option to delete all of these parts that are in the blue. And this one has this little serif right here. May have to clean that one up, but you know what? That's the beauty of doing this way, is that you have a lot of options because you can still use the pen tool. So I'm going to grab all of these. Oops, I missed a little spot there. I'm going to grab all of these and I'm actually just going to merge them with the Pathfinder because I can now see that I got a little piece right here that I need to bring up to that line to make it match. And that is totally fine with me. All right, so now to the R. Actually, let's finish with this L. Let's try something a little different. Let's draw one box that lines up to this right side and all the way out here to this side. and then another box right here to cut all of that inside part. So let's select all of these, deselect that since that's for the S, Shift M, hold Option, drag across all of these blue parts. And you can even circle back around and do these blue parts on the bottom and left side, and make sure you get rid of the little piece here. Hold Shift, make my square around all of that, and boom, we got our L. Super easy. All right, so let's do the R. The R is going to have a little bit of a trick in it that I'm going to use to make the S's. So I'm going to take my rectangle tool and I'm going to draw a rectangle right around this curvy R. Then I'm going to deselect. I'm going to press A for my selection tool, or my direct selection tool. Select this corner, hold Shift, and select this corner. And had to do that again. But you can see with both of these corners selected, I get these rounded edges or rounded point handlebars. And I can actually just pull these in and get a nice round shape for this side of the R. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing for this inside part. Select those 2 points, pull this little handlebar in, and now I've got my rounded R shape. So now I'm going to create another box here for the bottom of this part. And then I'm going to draw my big squares, rotate 90 degrees, put that line right here on this end, drag another one up here to this end, and then I'm just going to make a box going this way. I try not to make them going out into nothing, but it's totally fine for this R. And I'm going to press Shift M for my direct selection tool, hold Option, and drag over all of these outside blue areas. Piece there, got that one there. And make sure that you do it on the inside here, only where it's going to be blue. I'm going to hold Shift, draw my square over the top. Oh, that was a mistake because I need this little piece in here. So I'm actually just going to hold nothing, and I'm going to draw around these white parts of this letter R. And this is where I can have fun with my little squiggly lines. All right, so now all of that is selected. I'm going to hold Option and delete out the inside of this, and then bam, we've got the R shape. Okay, so now for this, what I'm going to do is go ahead and draw a square around this whole S so that I can square off the left and right sides for these serifs. But I'm going to use the same trick where I draw a rectangle over this rounded part of the S. But I'm going to actually make it come just to the left side. Here as well. I'm going to go ahead and grab my 2 points here, pull my handlebars down, and now I've got my rounded bottom part. And if it's easier, you can actually just do those two pieces separate so that you can grab your points without having any other interference, and then take your 2 rounded pieces, press Shift M, and delete out that section so that now it's this perfectly round thing here. All right, let's do the same thing for this guy. Grab these 2 points and, oh, okay, so I messed that up. This one had all 4 points selected somehow. So I'm going to double click on it so I can just get in there and pull that left side. All right, so now I've got that. I'm going to draw this interior curved area. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to double click it, grab these 2, pull it in. All right, now I've got lines around all of the shapes here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab all of this, press Shift M, hold Option, delete out all of the blue pieces, and get into these little curves. Pull that out. And that should be the S. All right. There you go. So it may be a little bit confusing when you first start using the tool, but honestly, it gets a lot easier to be able to visualize what lines you're drawing and why and what they're going to, merge together or erase whenever you start doing more complex shapes. But you can see how this kept this super consistent, especially using my guides. And I didn't really necessarily need to try to figure out any of my curves, using the pen tool. I didn't have to try to make consistent, height and things on my serifs. Everything is just made out of the same shape, so it works perfectly. This is exactly what I did for this project where I needed to rebuild this existing art that somebody else created, and without spending a super long time looking for the fonts. Obviously everybody has different processes and different ways that they do things. So I just wanted to give a glimpse at how I do certain things and why, it's up to you. There's a reason why you can do things 1,000 different ways in Illustrator. Everybody works differently. And, it's super cool to see how other people do things. So just wanted to give you a, look into how I do it and why. So I hope this brought some value, if anything, just for entertainment. But if you learned something, please consider checking out some of my other videos. I do a lot of tutorials for Illustrator and Photoshop. Seem to do a lot more Illustrator just because a lot of people have more questions about Illustrator more often. But, I'm just trying to get in there and do more stuff like this. So if there's any particular thing that you want to see, even if you already know how to do it and you just want to see how I do it, please feel free to ask in the comments below or hit me up on my social media. I'll leave links to those as well. If this is your first time checking out one of my videos, please consider subscribing. It helps me out tremendously. And, it really helps me figure out what you guys are enjoying and what you're wanting to watch in the future, especially if you hit that little like button down there and hit that little bell so that way you can be notified every time I release a new video like this. All right, guys, I really appreciate you checking it out. And like always, we'll catch you on the next one. Later.